The old pickup truck rolled down Main Street as the sun painted the sky orange. Four men sat inside, trading jokes and memories like they were teenagers again. After 15 years serving as Navy SEALs, they were finally coming home to Oakwood, the small town where they'd grown up together. Jackson, who everyone called JT, couldn't stop smiling. His mother was turning 70, and the whole town was planning the biggest birthday party anyone had ever seen. Mike, sitting in the driver's seat, pointed at the old diner where they used to hang out after school. Nothing had changed. Same red booths, same neon sign flickering in the window. "Can't believe this place still looks exactly the same," Tony said from the back seat, his eyes scanning the familiar streets. David, the quiet one of the group, just nodded, taking in every detail of their hometown. Oakwood was special. It wasn't just any small town, it was a place where everyone knew everyone, where neighbors helped each other without asking, and where Sunday dinners brought the whole community together. Most folks here had lived in Oakwood for generations, building a strong, proud community. As they drove past the community center, something caught Mike's eye. A fresh patch of paint covered part of the wall, but he could tell something had been written there before. He didn't say anything, not wanting to spoil the happy mood. They pulled up to JT's childhood home, where his mother was already waiting on the porch. The moment she saw them, she rushed down the steps, moving faster than anyone her age should. "My boys are home," she called out, wrapping each of them in a hug that somehow felt both gentle and strong. The next few days were filled with preparations for the big birthday celebration. The whole town was involved. Mrs. Johnson was baking her famous peach cobbler, the church choir was practicing special songs, and the kids from the local school were making decorations. But as the men helped set up tables in the town square, they started noticing little things that seemed off. A broken window at the hardware store that the owner said was just an accident. New locks on the library doors. People whispering and looking over their shoulders more than usual. One evening, while fixing some lights for the party, Tony overheard two elderly men talking quietly on a bench. "Did you see those motorcycles driving through town last night?" "Yeah, and that writing on the community center wall before they painted over it. Hope they don't come back." The four friends exchanged glances. Their military training had taught them to notice patterns, to sense when something wasn't right. And right now, their instincts were telling them that their peaceful hometown might be facing some kind of trouble. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, the four men sat on JT's mother's porch, looking out at the quiet street. "Something's going on," Mike said softly. "Yeah, I've been noticing it too," JT replied. "People seem nervous." "We should keep our eyes open," David suggested, speaking up for the first time. "Just in case." They agreed to stay alert without alarming anyone. After all, they were here for a celebration, not to stir up worry. But deep down, each of them knew that their training and experience might be needed sooner than they thought. As they sat there in the darkness, a motorcycle rode past in the distance. It was probably nothing, they told themselves, but old habits die hard, and four pairs of trained eyes followed the sound until it faded away. Their hometown hadn't changed much in 15 years, but something was definitely different now. And whatever it was, they'd be ready for it. Because that's what they did, they protected people. And there were no people more important to protect than the ones who had raised them, fought them, and welcomed them home with open arms. Little did they know that their 2-week vacation was about to become something much more important. The peaceful town of Oakwood was about to need its sons more than ever before. The morning sun hadn't even fully risen when Police Chief Mary Jenkins pulled up to the diner. She spotted the four friends having breakfast at their usual corner booth, just like old times. But today, her face carried worry instead of her usual warm smile. "Boys, I need to talk to you," she said, sliding into the booth next to JT. She'd known them since they were kids getting into harmless trouble around town. Now they were decorated veterans, but to her, they'd always be those mischievous boys who used to steal apples from her tree. "What's going on, Chief?" Mike asked, setting down his coffee. She looked around, making sure no one else was listening. "We've been having some trouble lately. Nothing too serious yet, but..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "There's this motorcycle group that's been causing problems in nearby towns. They call themselves the Iron Cross." The four men exchanged knowing looks. They'd heard whispers about this group during their morning runs through town. Last month, they showed up in Millbrook, about 50 miles from here, the chief continued. Started with small stuff, loud noise, reckless driving. But then it escalated. They targeted local businesses, scared folks, made people feel unsafe in their own town. Tony leaned forward. And you think they're coming here? Chief Jenkins nodded slowly. I've been talking to other police departments. This group, they seem to pick towns they think can't defend themselves. Small communities, limited police resources. She pulled out her phone and showed them a photo. It was grainy, taken from a security camera, but they could make out several motorcycles and riders wearing leather jackets with distinctive patches. Their leader goes by the name Crusher, she explained. Real name's Cody Malone. He's got a record. Assault, vandalism, intimidation. Nothing that's kept him locked up for long, unfortunately. David, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. Have they been here already? The chief sighed. I think so. That graffiti on the community center last week, the broken windows at Joe's hardware store. The timing matches their pattern. JT's jaw tightened. His mother's birthday celebration was just days away. The whole town was looking forward to it. What can we do to help? Officially, nothing yet. I don't have enough evidence to call in state police, and my department's just me and 2 deputies. She looked at each of them. But unofficially, I could use some extra eyes around town. Mike nodded. We were planning to stay for 2 weeks anyway. We can keep watch. That afternoon, the 4 friends split up to gather information. They talked to shop owners, walked the streets, and noticed things most people would miss. The local mechanic mentioned seeing unfamiliar motorcycles getting gas late at night. The librarian talked about strangers asking questions about the town's layout. By evening, they'd pieced together a troubling picture. The Iron Cross wasn't just randomly picking towns, they were specifically targeting communities like Oakwood, communities they thought would be easy targets. As they sat in JT's mother's living room that night, maps spread out on the coffee table, they planned their next moves. They marked locations where incidents had occurred, noted patterns in the timing, and identified vulnerable spots in town. They're testing us, Tony observed, seeing how we respond to small incidents before they make a bigger move. The festival, David said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. JT's mom's birthday celebration. The whole town will be gathered in one place. If I were them, that's when I'd make my move. The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. The celebration meant to bring joy to their community could become a target. We can't let that happen, JT said firmly. This is our home. Mike stood up, his military bearing showing. Then we need to be ready. We've got 3 days to prepare. As they continued planning late into the night, none of them noticed the distant rumble of motorcycles on the highway, getting closer to Oakwood with each passing hour. The storm was coming, but this time, the town had protectors who knew exactly how to weather it. The church bells were ringing for Sunday service when JT's phone buzzed. It was Pastor Williams, his voice shaking. Son, you need to come see this. The 4 friends arrived at the church within minutes. What they saw made their hearts sink. Someone had spray-painted hateful symbols on the beautiful white walls of the church. The stained glass windows, which had stood proud for over 100 years, were cracked. Broken glass littered the church steps. Pastor Williams, a man who'd baptized half the town, stood there with tears in his eyes. Who would do such a thing? While Mike and David helped clean up the glass, JT and Tony walked around the building, looking for clues. They'd found fresh motorcycle tire tracks in the soft dirt behind the church. This happened early this morning, Tony whispered to JT, probably around 4 a.m. when the town was asleep. As they helped clean up, more reports came in. Mrs. Henderson, who ran the local bakery, called to say someone had thrown trash all over her storefront. Mr. Peterson found his flower shop signs knocked down. That evening, the 4 friends decided to patrol the town. They split into pairs, JT with Tony, Mike with David. They didn't wear anything that would identify them as military. Just regular clothes, walking casually, but their trained eyes missed nothing. Around midnight, JT and Tony heard the sound of spray paint cans near the community center. They moved silently through the shadows, a skill they'd perfected during their service. 2 men in leather jackets were spraying more hateful symbols on the wall. Hey, JT called out, stepping into the streetlight. What do you think you're doing?" The two men spun around surprised. One was tall and thin, the other short and stocky. Both wore Iron Cross patches on their jackets. "Mind your own business, man," the tall one sneered, but JT noticed his hand was shaking slightly. Tony stepped forward, his presence calm but commanding. "This is our business. This is our town." The short one tried to act tough. "You don't know who you're messing with. We're Iron Cross. Our whole crew's coming, and when they do..." "When they do what?" Mike's voice came from behind them. He and David had heard the commotion and circled around. Now surrounded, the two vandals looked much less confident. The tall one dropped his spray can. "Look, we don't want trouble." "Funny way of showing it," David said quietly. JT stepped closer. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to clean this up. Then you're going to leave. And you're going to tell your friends that Oakwood isn't the easy target they think it is." The vandals exchanged nervous glances. Something about these four men, the way they moved, the way they spoke, told them these weren't ordinary townspeople. "You can't stop all of us," the short one muttered as they started cleaning. "Crusher's bringing 50 guys this weekend, you'll see." After the vandals finished cleaning and rode away on their motorcycles, the four friends stood in the quiet street. "So now we know," Mike said. "They're planning something big for the festival." JT looked at his watch. "We have 5 days. We need to prepare without scaring everyone." The next morning, they met with Chief Jenkins and shared what they'd learned. She was worried but grateful. "I can't officially deputize you," she said, "but I'm glad you're here." Over the next few days, the four friends quietly prepared. They mapped out the festival grounds, identified safe zones, and planned escape routes. They talked to trusted community members, asking them to keep watch and report anything suspicious. But they did it all without causing panic. To most people, they were just helpful sons of Oakwood, setting up for the big celebration. JT's mother kept asking why they were working so hard on the festival. "We just want everything to be perfect for your birthday, Mom," JT would say, hugging her. If only she knew that her birthday party had become the center of something much bigger. But that was okay. They'd make sure she and everyone else could celebrate in peace. That's what they did. They protected people. And this time, it was personal. The morning air was crisp as JT stood in his mother's kitchen, looking at the festival layout spread across the table. Red circles marked potential trouble spots, blue lines showed escape routes, and green dots indicated safe zones. His military training was kicking in, but this time, he was protecting something far more precious than any mission objective. Chief Jenkins arrived with fresh coffee and donuts. "I've been thinking," she said, setting down the box. "We need to involve the community, but carefully. Can't have people panicking." Mike nodded. "We've got a plan. Want to hear it?" Over the next hour, they outlined their strategy. The key was to prepare everyone without alarming them. They'd frame everything as safety measures for the large crowd expected at the festival. That afternoon, they started putting their plan into action. Tony met with the local veterans group, men and women who'd served in various conflicts. Without mentioning the Iron Cross, he suggested they help with crowd management during the festival. "Just want to make sure everyone stays safe with so many people coming," he explained. The veterans, sensing something in Tony's tone, agreed immediately. David visited the high school football coach. The team was strong, disciplined, and protective of their town. "We need some strong guys to help set up barriers and move equipment," David said. The coach volunteered his entire team. Meanwhile, JT worked with local business owners. The hardware store owner, Mr. Chen, offered walkie-talkies. The camping store provided flashlights. Everyone wanted to help make the festival special. Mike coordinated with the church groups. "We're setting up first aid stations," he told them, "just in case anyone needs help during the celebration." The church ladies immediately volunteered to staff these stations. By Wednesday, they had created something remarkable. Without anyone realizing it, they'd built a network of lookouts, safety zones, and communication channels throughout the festival grounds. The local radio enthusiasts set up a communication center in the community hall. Teen volunteers became festival guides, stationed at key points with radios. The veterans formed welcome committees at every entrance. JT's mother noticed all the activity. "My goodness," she said, watching people setting up. "All this fuss for my birthday." "You deserve it, Mom," JT replied, hugging her. "Everyone loves you." Thursday evening, the four friends held a final meeting with Chief Jenkins and key community members. They gathered in the church basement, away from curious eyes. "Here's what we know," Mike began. "The Iron Cross plans to disrupt the festival. They think we're an easy target." Mr. Rodriguez, who owned the local garage, spoke up. "They're wrong about that. This is our town." "Exactly," JT said. "But we need to be smart. No confrontations unless absolutely necessary. Our goal is to protect the festival and keep everyone safe." They assigned roles. The veterans would watch the perimeter. The football team would be stationed near the stage and main areas. Church groups would monitor the first aid stations and keep children safe. "Remember," David emphasized, "if you see anything suspicious, don't engage. Use the radios to alert us. We'll handle it." As the meeting ended, old Mrs. Thompson stood up. She'd lived in Oakwood for 80 years. "I remember when this town faced challenges before," she said. "We always stood together. That's what makes us strong." Friday morning dawned clear and bright. Festival decorations went up all over town. Food vendors arrived. The band started practicing. To any outsider, it looked like a normal small-town celebration. But beneath the surface, Oakwood was ready. Every entrance had watchers. Every section had protectors. Every child had someone keeping an eye on them. As JT watched the sunset that evening, Tony joined him on the porch. "You think they'll really come?" Tony asked. JT nodded. "They'll come. But they have no idea what they're walking into." "A town that looks out for each other," Tony smiled. "More than that," JT replied. "A family." The stage was set. The town was prepared. And tomorrow, Oakwood would show what happens when a community stands united against those who try to divide it. The festival morning arrived with perfect weather. The town square buzzed with excitement as vendors set up their booths and children ran around with balloons. The sweet smell of barbecue filled the air, and the high school band tuned their instruments on the main stage. JT's mother wore her favorite Sunday dress, a bright yellow that matched her sunny personality. "I can't believe all this is for me," she kept saying, her eyes sparkling with joy. But while the celebration looked normal on the surface, the four friends were on high alert. They'd positioned themselves strategically, JT near the main stage, Mike by the entrance, Tony patrolling the perimeter, and David coordinating from the communication center. At exactly 2 p.m., the distant rumble of motorcycles broke through the festival music. The sound grew louder, closer. Soon, dozens of motorcycles appeared at the town entrance, their engines roaring like angry beasts. Mike spoke quietly into his radio. "They're here. Count about 50 bikes." The Iron Cross rode in formation, trying to look intimidating. They expected people to scatter, to run in fear. But something unexpected happened. Nobody panicked. The festival continued as if nothing was wrong. The motorcycle gang parked their bikes and strutted into the festival grounds, led by Crusher himself, a large man with a scared face and cold eyes. They walked straight to the center of the square, expecting everyone to make way. But the townspeople didn't move. The veterans stood firm at their posts. The football team continued helping children with games. The church ladies kept serving food. Crusher looked confused. This wasn't how it usually went. He grabbed a microphone from a nearby booth. "Listen up," he shouted. "This festival is over. Everyone needs to leave now." The music stopped. People turned to look, but still nobody ran. Instead, JT stepped onto the stage and took another microphone. "Actually," JT said calmly, "this is my mother's birthday celebration, and everyone's invited to stay, including you if you behave respectfully." Crusher's face turned red with anger. He signaled his men to spread out, to start causing trouble. But as they moved, they found their paths blocked, not by force, but by crowds of peaceful people who simply wouldn't move aside. One gang member tried to knock over a food table, but found himself surrounded by the football team. They didn't touch him, just stood there, arms crossed, shaking their heads. Another tried to intimidate the elderly choir group, but the veterans quietly stepped between them, their presence alone enough to make the biker back down. Mike's voice came through the radios. "They're getting frustrated. Stay calm, everyone." Crusher, realizing his usual tactics weren't working, made one last attempt. He marched toward the stage where JT's mother sat. But before he could reach her, JT, Mike, Tony, and David appeared, forming a protective circle. "I think you're lost," Tony said quietly. "The exit is that way." Something in their stance, in their eyes, made Crusher pause. These weren't ordinary townspeople. There was a precision to their movements, a confidence that spoke of serious training. The town sheriff arrived with state police backup, summoned earlier by Chief Jenkins. They began questioning the gang members about recent vandalism in nearby towns. Realizing they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Crusher made one last attempt to save face. "This isn't over," he growled. "Actually, it is," David replied. "You see, bullies only win when people are afraid. And nobody here is afraid of you." As the police escorted the gang members away, the festival music started again. People cheered, not in triumph, but in celebration of their community's strength. JT's mother, who had watched everything unfold, called her son over. "I may be old," she said, "but I'm not blind. You boys did something special today." JT hugged her. "We just helped bring everyone together, Mom. The town protected itself." As the sun set over Oakwood, the festival continued with even more joy than before. Children played, couples danced, and the whole town celebrated not just a birthday, but their unity. The four friends stood together, watching their hometown shine brighter than ever. They had shown that courage isn't about fighting, it's about standing together for what's right. The festival was winding down when Crusher made his final move. While most of his gang had been escorted away by police, he and 5 of his closest members had slipped away during the commotion. Now, as families were packing up and heading home, they returned. But this time, Crusher had done his homework. He recognized something in those 4 men who'd stood against him. The way they moved, the way they communicated without words, it all pointed to military training. "You think you're smart," Crusher called out as he approached JT near the town square. "But I know who you are now. I asked around. You're those Navy boys who left town years ago." JT turned slowly, his friends already moving into position around him. The remaining townspeople stopped to watch, but the 4 men gestured for everyone to stay back. "We're just hometown boys looking after our community," Mike replied calmly. Crusher laughed, but it sounded forced. "Navy SEALs, right? That's what people are saying. Big heroes coming back to save their little town." Tony stepped forward. "We're not here as SEALs. We're here as sons of Oakwood. Big difference." The tension in the air was thick. Crusher's remaining men looked nervous, shifting their weight from foot to foot. They'd come expecting to intimidate civilians, not face trained military operators. "You can't be everywhere," Crusher threatened. "We'll come back when you're gone." David, who rarely spoke, fixed Crusher with a steady gaze. "Then we'll make sure you never want to come back." What happened next became legend in Oakwood. Without any violence, the 4 friends demonstrated exactly why Crusher should reconsider. They moved in perfect coordination, surrounding the gang members so smoothly it seemed choreographed. JT picked up a festival banner pole, just a lightweight aluminum rod. With precise movements, he showed how it could be used for defense, his actions so fast they blurred. Mike demonstrated hand signals to the watching crowd, showing how the town could communicate silently if needed. Tony and David set up an impromptu obstacle course using festival equipment, moving through it with such speed and precision that the gang members' jaws dropped. It was like watching a dance, beautiful, controlled, and absolutely clear in its message. "This is what you're up against," JT said quietly. "Not just us, but a whole town that knows how to work together. We've shown them how to watch, how to communicate, how to protect each other." Chief Jenkins arrived with federal agents. Apparently, the Iron Cross had been on their radar for months, and today's events had given them enough evidence to act. As the agents handcuffed Crusher, he looked at JT with newfound respect mixed with defeat. "Why didn't you just fight us from the start?" "Because that's not what strength is about," JT replied. "Real strength is building something, not tearing it down. It's about protecting people, not hurting them." The federal agents revealed that the Iron Cross had terrorized dozens of small towns across 3 states. But Oakwood was where their reign of intimidation ended. That night, the town gathered once more in the square. This time, it wasn't for a festival, but for something even more important, a community meeting. The mayor stood up first. What happened today showed us something. We're stronger than we knew. JT's mother rose next, her voice strong. These boys came home to celebrate, but they gave us something much better. They reminded us how to stand together. The four friends tried to slip away quietly, uncomfortable with the attention. But the town wouldn't let them. Children brought them flowers. Veterans saluted. The elderly ladies from church hugged them tight. As the meeting ended, FBI Special Agent Rodriguez pulled the four friends aside. "We could use men like you," he said, "consultants to help other towns prepare." The four friends looked at each other. They'd found a new mission, not as SEALs, but as protectors of communities. Their military skills had found a peaceful purpose. Under the starlit sky, Oakwood slept peacefully. The Iron Cross was finished, and word would spread. Some towns refuse to be victims. Some communities stand together. And sometimes, the quietest strength is the most powerful of all. 6 months had passed since that unforgettable festival. Oakwood had changed, but not in the way anyone expected. The town hadn't built walls or bought weapons. Instead, they'd built something far more powerful, an unbreakable community spirit. JT sat on his mother's porch, watching children play in the street. The four friends had made a decision that surprised everyone. They were staying in Oakwood permanently. Each had found their calling right here at home. Mike opened a community center where he taught self-defense and confidence building. But his classes weren't about fighting. They were about awareness, communication, and helping others. Teenagers, elderly folks, and everyone in between attended his sessions. Tony started working with the local schools, creating programs that taught young people about leadership and teamwork. He used his military experience not to create soldiers, but to build confident, responsible citizens. David, the quiet one, became the town's emergency preparedness coordinator. He helped every neighborhood create safety plans and communication networks. His calm presence made everyone feel secure. JT took over the youth mentorship program, working with at-risk teens. Many of these young people had been headed down dangerous paths, but JT showed them better ones. The transformation of Oakwood caught attention nationwide. News crews arrived to tell the story of the small town that stood up to hate without violence. But the four friends always redirected credit to the community. "We didn't save this town," JT told one reporter. "The town saved itself. We just reminded people of their own strength." Other communities reached out for help. The friends began traveling to nearby towns, teaching their methods of peaceful community protection. They called it the Oakwood Model, a system based on unity, preparation, and nonviolent resistance. Chief Jenkins expanded her police force with federal grants. The new officers were trained in community policing, focusing on building relationships rather than just enforcing laws. The biggest change came when the town council voted unanimously to establish the Oakwood Peace Center. Built on the site where the festival confrontation had occurred, it became a training ground for communities facing similar challenges. On the anniversary of that fateful day, the town held another festival. This time, it wasn't just for JT's mother's birthday, it was a celebration of community courage. People came from neighboring towns to join the celebration. The former Iron Cross clubhouse in a nearby county had been transformed into a youth center. Several former gang members, inspired by Oakwood's example, now worked there, helping young people avoid the mistakes they'd made. JT's mother stood on the stage, looking at her son with pride. "You boys didn't just come home," she said. "You brought home with you." As the sun set over the festival, the four friends stood together once more. Children ran past them, laughing and playing without fear. Neighbors shared food and stories. The town band played songs of hope and unity. "Remember when we thought this would just be a 2-week vacation?" Mike joked. Tony laughed. "Best mission we ever had, protecting home." David nodded quietly, watching an elderly couple dance to the music, not just protecting, building. JT looked around at the faces he'd known since childhood, now glowing with confidence and strength. "We learned something important," he said. "Being a warrior isn't about fighting. It's about knowing when not to fight." The Oakwood model spread across the country. Communities learned that strength comes from unity, that courage means standing together, and that the most powerful weapon against hate is love. Years later, when people asked about the 4 Navy SEALs who saved a town, the people of Oakwood would smile and correct them. They didn't save us, they'd say. They reminded us how to save ourselves. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all, not defeating an enemy, but empowering a community to stand strong, united, and unafraid. The legacy of that birthday festival lived on, proof that when good people stand together, no force of hatred can prevail. The 4 friends had found their true calling, not as warriors of war, but as builders of peace. And Oakwood stood as living proof that the strongest communities are those that choose love over fear, unity over division, and courage over violence.